This is episode 40. My name is Mandy, and today we are speaking with Dr. Art Hunter from the Canadian Club of Rome. Art is a graduate from the Royal Military College, Imperial College, and the National Defence College. He was a member of the Telesat Canada's spacecraft design team for Anik A, Deputy Manager of Mechanical Systems for the Communications Technology Satellite, and Project Manager for the Canadarm project at the National Research Council of Canada. He has worked with about 100 Canadian companies as an Industrial Research Assistance Program Senior Project Manager and as President of Direct Engineering Consultants for over 30 years. He has a broad knowledge of many technical disciplines, including the electrical grid, microgrids, indoor climate control, non-fossil fuel energy generation, and efficient home construction techniques. Welcome, Art. We have 5 questions for you. What climate problem keeps you up at night?
More difficult than it sounds, but in essence, when it comes to the climate, I'm very concerned about the fact that events are happening very much faster than has ever been predicted, and we are not prepared. We are heading into what I would call very rapid species extinction. It's happening now. And most people have noticed things that are going on. And that's not just with the polar bears. It's got to do with the number of bird species, how many bugs there are in the air, and a number of things that you see daily. Now, there are, of course, a few things associated with this that clearly talks about what one can do to avoid this, what has been termed a ghastly future. And the problem, of course, is what do we do about it?
What is the solution?
The problem really is people, and therefore the solution is with people as well. I like to break it down into 2 types of people. Those who are anti-science, anti-fact, QAnon, very pro-burning of oil. Facts are insufficient, and they say that the climate is not changing, or if it is, it's not caused by humans, and they use terms like green fanatics and tree huggers, but they're deniers. The other side of the coin is those who say, yes, we're in a major problem, but I don't know what to do about it. They have an interest to do something, but they say, there's just me and I feel totally useless. I can't do anything. And of course, layered on top of all this is, well, I can't afford to do anything. And all this, of course, is really quite wrong. And it's very poorly conceived. And it's more an excuse than a reality. So what we have to do is look at the process of education, of trying to get both groups, hopefully, on board and moving in the same direction. And you look at what people can do, and you say, well, there's 3 main things that affect you in your life. You have a shelter, you live somewhere. You have transportation, you must get about your daily affairs, and you got to eat. So there's 3 of them right there: transportation, your building, and the food chain. Now, you can do things which in all 3 of these major areas, everybody can. And you've got to think in terms of electrification and how can you become an integral part of nature. And for example, I have approached these 3 things in my system, and I've made a microgrid. where I generate my own electricity. I have an electric vehicle. I get all the heat I need for my residence from the ground with a ground source heat pump. There's less ambitious things people can do. For example, I remember as a child growing up in Thunder Bay, everybody had a garden. Everybody grew rhubarb and carrots and radishes and corn, and you see that very rarely these days. Sure, you can go off and do this, and you're reducing the distance from plant to plate. And that means you're not embedding a whole bunch of greenhouse gases and your carbon footprint in what you're eating. And that's easy to do. Other things you can do is you can plant a tree everywhere. Just take a look around as you walk and say, wouldn't a tree go nice there? And that isn't going to happen without you. Make arrangements, plant a tree. Is this hard to do? No, everyone can do that. This is all part of the education. You are part of nature. You must embrace nature. You must plan for what's going to happen to your descendants 7 generations from now. Stop being so greedy and say, I want it all now. What about 7 generations downstream, like our native peoples have done? And that is something we must embrace. Now, to do this, you can join community groups, neighborhood groups. The most important thing you can do is to talk about it. Talk about it to your neighbors, to your friends, to your colleagues. Try and one-upsmanship and say, I've done something you haven't done. This is wonderful. If we can get that sort of grassroots movement going, that's educational all in its own right. Now, in the process, of course, there's other things that are happening at government levels, whereby there are programs being put in place that are going to provide financing. So one wants to stay connected to where these programs are and what your community project might be. And of course, your community project absolutely must include children. They must be brought in early and understand. They have energy, enthusiasm, understanding that they have their whole life in front of them and what they're doing is really in their benefit. So children are absolutely vital. Now, in the process, of course, there's new skills which have to be learned. And some of these new skills are really ancient skills. They've been around forever. It's just that we haven't used them. And we're back to how do you grow a family garden again? And what is it that you can do to keep warm and keep cool without burning fossil fuels? Now, the other layer that's over top of all this that we all have to understand is the world of finance and the billionaires and the movement whereby more and more of the wealth of the nation is going to fewer and fewer people. We have to stop that. We have to find ways to make a major change here. And of course, I like to use the term robbing from the poor to give to the rich. And this is a problem that is embedded in our economic system, and we're starting to see some very serious people approach this economic model and come up with better models. So be aware that all that is happening.
What's in the way?
Some of the big issues are, of course, are more excuses than they are reasons. And the one that keeps coming up is I can't afford it. And yet these are the same people who, you know, just last year they bought a new vehicle. And you can say, well, you know, there are things like the difference between affordability and an investment. Now, from my system, for example, it's an investment because I've gone and I've put solar on my roof. I'm driving electric vehicles. Do you think that came out of pocket money? No, I had to go borrow money and I did this, but all of a sudden, I'm not paying for electricity. I'm not paying for natural gas. I'm not buying gasoline. So I'm getting cash flow. And interestingly, it's tax-free because the government can't charge me taxes on money I'm not spending. So in that sense, it's an investment. I am getting a return on investment by not spending because I have no need for it. So I often, you know, take this I can't afford it argument and crush it like a bug. That isn't the way it works. And the concept of being able to cut your dependency on grid electricity, or you can pass gasoline stations and watch the prices going up and it's got nothing to do with you, is very rewarding. And you're as the prices of energy go up, you can argue and say my cash flow just went up because I'm not spending more. If you follow my logic. Anyway, that is really the major thing that's in the way.
How can people help?
Well, I think the best way, as I've indicated, is to get together with people you know. The concept of collaboration and working together is very, very powerful. People become creative, and when they get together and they're talking about this with enthusiasm, it's amazing what people can do when they collaborate with others. When you're by yourself, it's a little harder, but when you collaborate. So, I mean, I'm a big advocate of saying, work with your colleagues, work with your neighbors, find people who you can talk with, and try and be creative and out-create each other. Have little competitions. Do the things that really count. Be aware and share knowledge. Oh, once you share knowledge, it's an amazing thing that happens. People, you know, grasp it, and the beauty about knowledge is in its application. Once you got it, hey, you're going to do something with it. But if you don't have that knowledge, you know, you're not as effective. So spreading knowledge is the key.
What is the good future?
Now, I look at that and I say, there's no such thing as one future that's in store for us. There's multiple futures. It depends on what we do. And so what is important is to say, what future do you want? If you can envisage it, then you've got a target, you've got a place to go. And if you don't have that target, it's a little bit harder, okay? Because then you're like having being a ship at sea without a steering wheel or a rudder. You're going to go where the winds and the currents carry you. But if you know that you're heading due west, you can steer and you can head that direction, and therefore have a mission, have a destination, decide what the future is that you want, and work for it and share that dream, that vision with everyone. It'll modify and change over time, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have it. By all means, have a vision.
Thank you, Art. That was great. Thanks for joining us today. Before we sign off, we have asked our guests to share one last interesting Enviro fact to ponder, and here is what Art wanted you to know. 80% of the energy used in your home is used to heat the air and hot water. In many places, more than 60% of that heat is wasted due to leaks and poor insulation. Art, for example, uses a ground source heat pump to collect free energy and deposit that heat into a retrofitted, well-sealed and insulated home. All that is required is to go and collect free geothermal heat, which is similar to the collection of the sun's energy for free electricity. Thanks again for joining us, Art. This was EnviroCentre's Green Room.